Trump has a meeting, or had a meeting with Kim Jong-un in Singapore with Dennis Rodman. We all love him. He's been going there for years, and he's great friends with Kim Jong-un. When I first heard about Rodman going to see Kim Jong-un in Korea, I was very, I don't know what to think. But I was kind of happy because someone's going across the pond in a terrible country and trying to show him American life and show him who we really are. Because when governments talk to each other, it wasn't good back then. They both paint each other as the enemy. No conflict is ever going to be resolved. Do you think any past U.S. presidents could get this far with North Korea, or could it only be Trump?
I don't know, man. You heard what Rodman said. He said he tried to talk to Obama. Obama played him. You know,
that's right.
You know, Dennis Rodman is. I want to be nice here, but he's different. You know what I'm saying? He's probably a lot to handle. But I think that who you give a voice to, whether they're a lot to handle or not, says a lot about your humility and who you are as a person. So there's a lot of people that may seem strange or hard to deal with. I think of that as dealing with them. I think of that as a test of my character. So I think it says a lot about Obama's character that he didn't want to give, what's his name, any time of day, Dennis Rodman, any time of day. And then, some people were pulling up some old tweets from Trump saying something about Dennis Rodman and making fun of Dennis Rodman for going to Korea or something like that, or talking to him about Korea. And I'm like, well, just last year, him and Kim Jong-un were basically, ready to go into the boxing ring, but here we are. So I think that, we got to stop trying to pull up the past and looking at what's happening right now. What's happening right now is pretty funny. It's pretty hilarious that Dennis Rodman is creating peace between two nations.
Yeah.
Obama had the chance to.
To elaborate more on that, Rodman was recently in a CNN interview, and Kim basically offered President Obama the exact same plan that he offered Trump. And Obama, like you said, just ignored it. But Trump listened. He took the same plan. They're executing it now. Yeah. Some details about that plan. North Korean leader pledges to destroy major missile test site. U.S. will stop joint military exercises with South Korea. Kim accepted his invitation to visit the White House at the appropriate time. That would be a very historic moment as well. They signed a document on Tuesday stating that they would work towards complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. The remains of the U.S. prisoners of war, which they've been trying to do for a long time, would be returned to the families. So Trump is someone who's getting things done. And Cody, do you think any previous president could accomplish what Trump has accomplished this week?
Not in recent history, no. I've been hesitant to say this just because of the differences between them, but Trump actually reminds me a lot of our first generation presidents, all the way going back before Hoover, in the way that he speaks and the robust tone he uses. The language he uses is simple, straightforward, and most of the time a little gritty. But being able to stand up and speak like that and not be passive and not be, well, for lack of a better term, an ass kisser, is something that helped make this happen. Unfortunately, I don't think any of our presidents in recent history would have been able to pull it off and then actually make progress with it. And granted, we've yet to see whether or not anything's going to come out of this. And personally, I don't like how he's been treating Kim Jong-un politely and more as a friend and an ally than a dictator for the last 100 years. But I can see why he's doing it. You can't really insult a man and then expect him to show up and be friendly with you. You have to be at least polite, just not an ass kisser. But I think it's his grittiness.
What's the issue with Kim Jong-un? Because I'm not opposed to dictatorship.
He's been trying to race for nuclear arms for quite a while now.
I mean, that's fine. He should be able to. What does he do to his own people? Like, is he like mean to his own people? Like, how's
he murdered many of his own people.
For what?
Like his dad. I didn't really see the details for that, but his country is starving. He's been murdering a bunch of people. Very oppressive regime.
The people that live in North Korea literally see him as a god. And there's actually one escapee from North Korea. And yeah, literally an escapee that when she was brought onto the news and asked, what did she realize and what made her escape? Her, and I'm got the quote here. It's hard to realize that you're slaves when you're taught that your oppressor is a god. We didn't even think we were enslaved, but we are slaves in North Korea. And that's from the mouth of the woman who literally had to escape over gunfire and landmines to get out of a country. That in itself is kind of a no-no. It's isolationist to an extreme, and then seeing your regime as gods, and that's how they run their country. So
yeah, I have to do some more research on North Korea. It doesn't sound like a bad place to me so far.
So lately, they've been very aggressive with their actions near China and Japan. They've actually launched missiles over Japan, which is one of the reasons they said, okay, we're backing off. We're not helping anymore, North Korea. But they're doing tests, and they have been active and vocal in their threats against America, South Korea, and several other countries as well.
And they're not doing anything the U.S. doesn't do.
True.
But the thing with North Korea is that they're a terrible dictatorship, and they can actually become crazy one day and actually bomb other countries or even us. A lot of other countries are a little bit more stable than the leaders in North Korea. So that's why I think we're more alarmed when it comes to them having nuclear weapons. And
I think the term dictator takes a unwarranted what's the word I'm looking for? I think it's unfairly judged. It gets a bad rap. Again, I like dictatorships. I wish I could be dictator because I don't believe that you can have 100 people sit in this thing called Congress and run a nation. It's just too many cooks in the kitchen. And you know what I'm saying? I think that power needs to be centralized, and whoever is that leader has to be trusted. I think that he has to be for the culture and for the people. And I think that there are ways to make sure that happens, make sure you appoint the right people as dictator. But I don't think that being a dictator is necessarily a bad thing.
But what if a dictator becomes a dick? Sorry, my French. Then your whole country is at risk, your freedom, your liberty. In our society now and how our government's set up, we do have checks and balances. The president has very limited power except with executive orders. And people are able to elect and change their government.
Yeah, you hang them in town square and beat them with stones. Right? That's
well, and interestingly enough, the way that you're talking about this, it actually sounds like you're leaning more towards an autocracy than a dictatorship. And the main difference being that in a dictatorship, the position of power is not an elected position. It's more like what you would think with dynasties, with kings and queens, where it's handed down through direct lineage and nobody gets a say in what happens in a dictatorship.
Yeah, so that's why I don't believe in the lineage thing. I think that I kind of like how they did in the Wakanda. Like, you got to fight this thing out. And if you win the fight, like, you get to be dictator, and then anytime somebody wants to challenge you, they can. I kind of like that a little bit, but I think that shouldn't be the only determining factor. I think it should be like 3 different rounds. But one of them should be like, your loyalty to the people. Like, are you doing what's in the interest of the people? And if you're not, there should be like this thing attached to your heart where we can just press the button and it's the end of you, or you should be just arrested and thrown in jail for not looking out for the people. But again, I think that there is something that has to be created. And I've thought about this a lot, but there's certain ways to prove a person is fit to be a leader. There are certain things that they'd have to go through or demonstrate throughout their life that would make them a good leader. If you watch Naruto, in Naruto, you got Naruto and Sasuke and Sakura, and they're training to be ninja. And nobody has passed the ninja test under Kakashi. They were the first ones to pass the test. And the test was, he told them, do not share your food with the loser of the last round. And they shared their food with the loser of the last round, which is their teammate, and they passed the test. He said, you know, that's what this is about, looking out for each other. You know, so I think that people have to be tested in ways when they don't know they're being tested to show what that person's character is. And then there has to be like mitigated risk of bribery and things like that, because somebody could be bought and changed through money. So I think that there are things that need to happen throughout the year where, you know, the dictator might need to come party with everybody, you know, or whatever, and come down and be with the people. He might be required to do community service. You know, it's like certain things that can be put together to make sure that you have the right person there. And if he's not, then we can just take him out and replace him with somebody else who passed the test.
Yeah. I understand how you feel about dictatorships. I mean, as a full-time single parent, that kind of leadership style works for me. Clean the crap now, you know, I mean, it's fine, but when you start applying everybody's lives in the country, I mean, that's when I think that it's going to be really open to abuse and, you know, possible enslavement and losing of our rights. Because
yeah, and that's the thing. I don't view dictators as you do this and you do that. That's not how I view a dictatorship. Dictatorship just means a centralized power behind one person, right? Mm-hmm. The evil part is subjective. You know, when I raise my kids, I don't raise my kids, like I said before, as a dictator. You know, you have the option of not cleaning up this mess, but it's going to come with consequences. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I'm very mindful of the tone in which I speak to my kids. I don't speak to them, you know, from a place of, you know, like anger or resentment or animosity. You know, it's always like, yo, can you please clean that up? But I speak to them as if it was a roommate or if it was a friend. And I like, can you please clean the table? It's just a little messy. You know, that's how I kind of speak to the kids. Mm-hmm. So they feel like, you know, we're one and the same and not I'm above them. And I think that a dictator could be the same way. Look at Muammar Gaddafi. He was a dictator and there was zero unemployment in Libya. I mean, the place was beautiful, zero unemployment. As a matter of fact, the people of the nation could go to the bank, and I think it was either weekly or monthly withdrawals that was given to them from the government based upon the natural resources under the ground. Water was everywhere. Food was in abundance. There's not a single person that was hungry. As a matter of fact, Muammar Gaddafi said if he found you, if you get married, they give you a house. You know what I'm saying? If he found you begging for food, I'd throw you in jail because you're embarrassing me. Like, that's a good dictator. Mm-hmm. But, you know, of course, the media created all these lies and whatnot, and then Obama bombed them, and that was that.
Yep. Good old media. For our next story, I'm going to have to take a sip of my leftist tears because this one's going to hurt a lot. Stand by. They're delicious.
The Koreans aren't even allowed to drive.